Right. So thanks very much for your patience, I'm very happy to be able to see all of you here to be able to kind of think and reflect upon 50 years of physics in Singapore. I'm Justin, part of the organizing committee, and it's great to be able to have such pioneers from the 80s, from the 70s, and actually all through these various decades that we've been having active physics research in Singapore. Without further ado, I think maybe let me welcome Professor Symposium to give a welcome address to you guys. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. I am very delighted to see so many of my teachers here in one event. Okay, Professor Baki, Professor Lai, okay, Professor Andrew V, Professor Feng Yuanping. So thank you all for coming to celebrate this event. So let me just, I'm Zijian. Okay, so Professor Phua Kok Khoo, Founding Director Emeritus of the Institute of Advanced Studies at Nanyang Technological University. Professor Su Guaning, President Emeritus of Nanyang Technological University. Honorable guests, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and a very warm welcome to our Garden Campus, NTU. Today's occasion holds a unique significance as we pay tribute to Professor K.K. Phua. For 5 decades, Prof Phua has made important contributions to physics research and education in Singapore, starting from establishing a particle physics research group at Nanyang University, and then later at the National University of Singapore to numerous philanthropic programs in support of physics students in Singapore and the rest of Southeast Asia. Prof Phua is the founding director emeritus of the Institute of Advanced Studies at NTU, Adjunct Professor of the School of Physical and Mathematical Sciences at NTU, as well as at the Department of Physics at NUS. The academic turned entrepreneur is also the chairman and editor-in-chief of World Scientific Publishing Company Private Limited. The Institute of Advanced Studies at NTU was established by Professor Phua and then President Su Guaning in July 2005, with funding support from the Lee Foundation. The hallmark of IES at NTU is science at the highest level, with the interdisciplinary study of mathematics, physics, chemistry, and biology as fundamentals, and materials, electronics, nanotechnology, computing, and engineering as applications. Now, over the years, IES has actively engaged Nobel laureates and eminent international scholars to visit NTU, to interact and collaborate with our faculty and students, as well as facilitated multidisciplinary partnerships to further elevate the academic standing of NTU and Singapore. During his directorship from 2005 to 2018, IES had organized numerous international events, such as the 100 Years of Physics Symposium in Singapore in 2005, and the Conference on 60 Years of Young Mills Gauge Field Theories in 2015. A fervent supporter of education, Prof Phua has been actively involved in talent outreach and engagement. He actively invited Nobel laureates, for example, Professor Chen Yang, who visited IES to have interactive tea sessions with our NTU CN Young scholars, in addition to also organizing several public lectures at NTU by Nobel laureates and eminent speakers to emulate interest and inspire the NTU community. Now, in particular, the idea of an International Science Youth Forum, ISYF in short, in Singapore was mooted in 2008 by Ms. Ho Ping, then Director General of Education, and Professor Phua. The first ISYF was successfully launched in January 2009 by Hwa Chong Institution and IES. In the formative years of the ISYF, IES provided Hwa Chong with manpower as well as financial support, as well as the links with Nobel laureates and top international high schools. Now, ISYF today has spun off into a very successful series. Just 2 weeks ago, we celebrated the successful conclusion of the 15th edition of ISYF, which resumed the in-person format after the past 2 iterations of online ISYF due to the COVID pandemic. This year marks the 18th anniversary of IES. The Institute continues to grow from strength to strength as an interactive catalytic platform for eminent scientists and scholars from diverse backgrounds in the pursuit of enduring knowledge. Last August, we invited Kavli Prize laureate in nanoscience, Professor Virginijus Shinsky, to deliver an enlightening public lecture on his treasure trove of DNA scissors for genome editing. And in last September, along with the inaugural Nobel Prize Dialogue in Singapore, IS partnered with Nobel Prize Outreach to co-organize a satellite Nobel lecture in NTU by Professor Serge Haroch on the thought-provoking topic, the usefulness of useless knowledge, which was very well received by our students, researchers, and faculty. So IS remains committed to bring top-level science to Singapore, as well as to inspire and cultivate our next generation of students and researchers to become leaders of science and technology on the world stage. It is truly an honor to have someone like Professor Phua in our scientific community. His contributions to the field of physics, as well as his dedication to science education and promotion of scientific research in Asia, are truly inspiring. On behalf of the physics community in Singapore, I would like to express our deep gratitude and appreciation to Professor Phua. He will always be remembered as one of the greatest Singaporean scientists come entrepreneur of our time. Now, I'm confident that all of you are looking forward to the insightful thoughts and the rich discussions lined up in the Symposium program. Our eminent scientists from NTU, NUS, SUTD, Helix Technologies will share their insights on the broad perspective of Professor Phua's immense contribution to physics research and education, as well as the growth of physics in Singapore over the past half-century. I wish all of you an inspiring and fruitful information exchange through the Symposium. Thank you.
We have a second welcome address by our head of department, Professor Lee Wen-Xiang. Yeah.
I'm honored and delighted to be here with the pioneers of physics in Singapore. Invited speakers, distinguished guests, friends in the physics community, good morning. It gives me a pleasure to see so many faces and people who have pioneered physics in Singapore for the past 5 decades. Today, we are privileged to honor Professor Phua, and who has left an indelible mark on the physics in Singapore. Professor Phua was one of the pioneering theoretical physics faculty in Nanyang University, also called NANTA. That later merged with the University of Singapore to form the National University of Singapore and NUS in 1980s. Certainly, we'll hear more from Professor Phua's colleagues with interesting and exciting journeys later in the seminar later today. Briefly, Professor Phua conducted forefront particle physics research in Singapore in the 1970s after his PhD with Professors Tony Skimes, who was best known for his fermions formulations, and after his postdoc at the Niels Bohr Institute. Physics in Singapore today have grown in strength with a vibrant physics community, both in theory and experiments, encompassing many subfields such as photonics, high energy physics, condensed matter physics, quantum physics, and many others. Professor Phua's pioneering work in the early days of Singapore's physics, his relentless efforts in organizing conferences, as well as his world scientific, has helped to put Singapore on the world map of physics. Beyond his critical work in establishing the Institute of Advanced Studies, he has also been tireless advocate of NTU physics. Recently, together with his wife, Doreen, Professor Phua has generously established 2 prizes in physics for our undergraduate program. The World Scientific Prize in Physics and Applied Physics for our Year 1 and Year 2 physics undergraduates, as well as the KK Phua Gold Medal that recognizes our outstanding research in physics and maths for graduating final year student in SPNS. We are grateful for your generosity. We are here today to celebrate Professor Phua, but also to survey and reflect on the incredible changes in the Singapore physics landscape over the last 50 years since Professor Phua began at NANTA. This involves physicists from all over the island, young, and also those more experienced, theorists as well as experimentalists. Thank you for making the time to come today. I hope we will see and celebrate how Singapore physics has evolved, matured, and risen to become an important world-class node and scientific frontier land. Thank you, Professor Phua, and I wish all of you an insightful and reflective workshop. Thank you very much.